Hello and welcome back. This is lesson 13 of English with Mahdi, and I am here to teach you another 8 English words that are actually important in daily life, and I hope you to enjoy, listen, and use these kind of words afterwards, and improve your vocabulary knowledge even more. Now let's get started, and for the first word we have got elicit. Elicit. The stress is on the second syllable. Elicit. Elicit actually is a verb, and it means to draw out, obtain, or you could say bring forth a response, answer, feeling, or information from someone. Or we could say to get information, ideas, or reactions from people, usually by asking questions or creating a situation. For example, just imagine a teacher standing in front of a class and asks us, "What do you know about climate change?" So at that time, the students raise their hands and share ideas. So the teacher actually is not simply giving information, but rather she is eliciting information from the students. And for better understanding, now we have some synonyms like draw out, obtain, extract, evoke, generate, and prompt. And we also have some common collocations. We could say common words that are usually used with elicit, such as elicit a response, elicit an answer, elicit information, elicit opinions, and elicit reactions. Okay, dear listeners, and now we have some sentence examples like the survey elicited valuable feedback. The teacher elicited answers from the students. The researcher used interviews to elicit participants' opinions. And the advertisement elicited strong reactions from customers. That's it, dear listeners. Now let's jump on to another word, and it is evolve. Evolve. Evolve is a verb, and it means to develop gradually over time into a more advanced, complex, or different form. Or we could say to change and develop slowly over time. For example, imagine a small seed growing into a tree, and you know that the seed doesn't become a tree overnight. So it changes little by little. So the seed evolves into a tree. So it means to develop slowly over time. Okay, now we have some similar words to evolve, like develop, grow, progress, mature, change. And some common collocations like evolve gradually, evolve slowly, evolve naturally, evolve into a leader, evolve into a successful business. Now for the examples, we have the company evolved into a global brand. English has evolved over countries. Her teaching style evolved gradually. The city has evolved significantly during the last decade. That's it, dear listeners. Now let's move to another word, which is recruit. Recruit. Recruit consists of 2 syllables, and the stress is on the second syllable. Recruit. Actually, recruit can be either a verb or a noun. As a verb, it means to find and hire people for a job, organization, team, or military service. But as a noun, it means a person who has recently joined an organization, company, or you could say a team. So what I mean here is recruit, particularly as a verb, which means to persuade or hire someone to join a group or organization, or you could say a company. For example, imagine a football coach who is looking for talented players. So at that time, the coach actually is recruiting players. Or you could say a company interviewing job applicants and selecting new employees. So the company is recruiting new employees. Now we have some synonyms for recruit as a verb. We have some synonyms like hire, employ, enlist, bring in. And for collocations, we have got recruit staff, recruit workers, recruit employees, recruit players. Now it's time to have some examples, such as the school is recruiting new teachers. The charity recruited many volunteers. The football club recruited several talented players. The university is recruiting international students. Or you could say many international companies recruit graduates from top universities. That's it, dear listeners. Now let's go to another word which we have, and it is imply. Imply. The stress is on the second syllable. Imply. Imply actually is a verb, and it means to suggest something indirectly rather than stated directly. So you could say it means to communicate an idea without saying it openly. For example, imagine a student who's saying, I haven't started my assignment yet and it is due tomorrow. So at that time the student doesn't directly say I am worried, but their words imply that they are worried actually. So the words carry hidden meaning. At that time the listener must understand the message that's not directly expressed. So you could say that the student's words imply that they are worried. Now we have some synonyms like suggest, indicate, signal, and some common collocations. Some certain words that are usually actually used with the imply, like imply that, imply a connection, imply responsibility, imply a criticism. Or we could say imply responsibility or imply agreement. For instance, are you implying that I am wrong? His comment is implied dissatisfaction. The report implies a strong relationship between the two variables. The teacher's question implied that more detail was needed. His tone implied disappointment. That's it, dear listeners, and for the following word we have got marginalize. Marginalize. The stress is on the first syllable, marginalize. It means to treat a person or group as unimportant or less significant than others. Just imagine a group of students working on a project, for example, and one student has some ideas, but actually nobody listens to him. So at that time, the others make all the decisions and leave that student out. So the student at that time is being marginalized. Okay, now we have some synonyms for marginalize, like exclude, isolate, ignore. And for the collocations we have marginalized minorities, marginalized women, marginalized learners, marginalized students, marginalized voices. Okay, now we have some example sentences to be better understood. Like the policy may marginalize rural communities. Or you could say teachers should avoid practices that marginalize weaker students. The media sometimes marginalizes minority voices. The program aims to support groups that have been marginalized for years. And lastly, economic changes may marginalize vulnerable communities. So you could just imagine the word margin as the edge of a page. So it means to push someone to the edge and away from the center of attention, power, or we could say participation. Okay, dear listeners, now let's move to another word, which is simulate. Simulate. The stress on the first syllable, simulate. Simulate is a verb, and it means to imitate, or you could say model a real situation, process, or experience, often for practice, training, or you could say testing. So simply you could say that it means to create a copy of a real situation so that people can practice or study it. So for example, imagine a pilot learning to fly. Instead of flying a real airplane, the pilot sits in a flight simulator that looks and behaves like a real aircraft. So at the time, the simulator simulates a real flight. Or we could say, for example, students act out a job interview in class. So we could say, create their own simulator in class. So at that time, they are simulating a real interview. Now we have some similar words to simulate, like imitate, mimic, model, replicate, emulate. And some common collocations like simulate a situation, simulate an interview, simulate a flight, simulate an experiment. And now for the example sentences, we have got the first one: the software simulates real-world conditions. Second one: students simulated a business meeting. The game simulates life in a modern city. Or we could say the teacher asked the class to simulate a restaurant conversation. So lastly, we could say simulate means to make something behave like the real thing. We could say it's a copy of a real life. That's it, dear listeners. Now for the next word, we have salient. Salient. The stress is on the first syllable, salient. It is an adjective and it means the most noticeable, or we could say important part of something. For example, imagine a presentation with many pieces of information, and one graph is much larger and more important than the others, so everyone can understand it actually. And that graph is the most salient feature of the presentation. And for the synonyms, we have got important, prominent, notable, significant, outstanding. And for the collocations, we have salient feature, salient point, salient factor, and salient characteristic. Now we have some example sentences to make it more clear, such as: the most salient feature of the building is its large dome. Another example: let me summarize the salient pointers of the discussion. One salient characteristic of the program is its flexibility. And lastly, the researcher focused on the most salient findings. Okay, dear listeners, now let's go to the last word, which is compatible. Compatible. The stress on the second syllable, compatible. It's an adjective and it means able to exist, work, or be used together successfully without conflict or problems. Or simply we could say able to fit or work well together. For example, just imagine a phone charger and a phone. So the charger fits and works with the phone at that time. So they are compatible. But when the charger and the phone don't fit together, so at that time they are not compatible. Now we have some synonyms to the word compatible, such as suitable, matching, harmonious, well matched, and fitting. And we have some common collocations. The words that usually are used with the compatible, such as compatible with software, compatible with a device, compatible with your goals, compatible with the system, and compatible with the law. Or we could say compatible with modern teaching methods. Now we have some example sentences to make it more clearer. For example, this software is compatible with Windows. His actions are not compatible with his promises. The new curriculum is compatible with current educational standards. Or we could say her teaching philosophy is compatible with communicative language teaching. So lastly, we could say if two things are compatible, they work well together without causing problems. That's it, dear listeners. Now I will share a paragraph using all these 8 words in order to be more understandable. So now listen carefully to the paragraph and pay attention to the words and listen where they are used. Okay, dear listeners, now pay a meticulous attention to what I am saying. An educational technology continues to evolve. Schools often recruit teachers who are comfortable using digital tools that are compatible with modern learning environments. Researchers frequently elicit feedback from both teachers and students to understand the most salient challenges they face. To prepare learners for real-world situations, instructors may simulate workplace interactions and problem-solving tasks. The findings of such activities may imply that some teaching methods are more effective than others. However, educators must be careful not to marginalize students who have different learning needs or lower levels of digital literacy. Okay, dear ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the lesson.